Can I ask Councillor Goodall to move his motion? Motion number 3. Councillor Goodall, please.
Thank you, Provost. 3 weeks from today, on the 1st of January, I'll have been on a fully plant-based diet for 2 years. At the start of 2024, like many people do each year, I decided to give Veganuary a try. That's the annual global campaign that encourages people to try a fully plant-based diet for the month of January, focusing on the health, environmental and ethical benefits that come from cutting out meat, dairy and other animal products. Having found it relatively easy to stick to this new diet and having felt the health benefits over those 31 days, I chose to continue with this new plant-based lifestyle. Within the first month, I'd lost a stone in weight, my blood pressure came down to a much healthier level, as did my cholesterol levels, and my type 2 diabetes became much more under control. These health benefits have continued over the last 2 years. So my plant-based diet has had a good impact on my health, but it's also helped me drastically reduce my personal carbon footprint. A plant-based diet can really cut your food-related carbon footprint, with studies showing that reductions of around 46% to 73% in greenhouse gas emissions when compared with omnivorous diets. This translates to potentially saving several tons of CO2 equivalent annually, and it also frees up vast amounts of land, making it one of the most effective individual actions to have a positive impact on climate change. For many years before I made this change, I did try to cut back on my red meat consumption, and I've always been concerned about issues like animal welfare. But what made me decide to try and go the whole way and adopt a fully plant-based diet? Well, you did. Or maybe it'd be better to say Fife Council did. Like many of you here, I took part in the recommended carbon literacy training for councillors, and that makes it very clear just what the impact of the meat and dairy industry has on greenhouse gas emissions. One statistic wedged itself very firmly in my mind. The production of 1 kilogram of beef produces 100 kilograms of carbon. And in the climate emergency, what can you do section of the Fife Council website, it says, ensure you eat a healthy diet with more local and seasonal ingredients, reducing meat consumption. This reduces carbon emissions from food dramatically. So as someone who could never afford to buy an electric car and who's not prone to jetting off around the world, it struck me that here was something I could do, something completely within my own control that I could do to really reduce my negative impact on the planet. Having made this change, I started to get to know other people in Fife who were also living in this way and who were doing their best to educate Fifers about the benefits of a plant-based diet. And groups like Plant-Based Fife have shared many an interesting fact with me. For example, if everyone in Fife ate one plant-based meal a week, these are the impacts that could make. Land freed for nature, 83 square kilometres. That's roughly 11,600 full-size football pitches, or double the size of Kirkcaldy, or 5 times the size of Tentsmuir Forest. Emissions avoided, 17,700 tonnes of CO2 per year, roughly the equivalent of taking 17,700 cars off the road for a year. Plant-Based Fife also introduced me to the international campaign known as the Plant-Based Treaty, a grassroots global initiative urging cities, groups, businesses and individuals to pressure national governments to negotiate a UN treaty for a global shift to plant-based food systems, tackling the climate crisis by ending the expansion of animal agriculture, promoting plant-based diets and restoring ecosystems. The Plant-Based Treaty is a companion to the Paris Agreement on climate change, focusing on principles like redirecting subsidies, relinquishing land from animal farming, and restoring nature, with endorsing cities and councils implementing local actions like promoting plant-based meals in public institutions. As the motion says, both Edinburgh and Lambeth councils have already done what we're asking Fife Council to do today by exploring how the general principles of the Plant-Based Treaty can be incorporated into the day-to-day actions of the Council. And just this week, the City of Strasbourg, the legislative capital of Europe, endorsed the Plant-Based Treaty with a motion that was presented by their mayor and then went on to be passed unanimously. Our motion today isn't asking Fife to do that just yet. All we are asking for today is for an agreement that we ask our officers, many of whom are already working in this area, to bring forward a report to the Cabinet Committee explaining the options that we could pursue as a council in line with the general principles of the Plant-Based Treaty. So the Plant-Based Treaty has global ambitions, and globally the science is undeniable. Even if we halted fossil fuel use today, emissions from food production alone could still push us past the critical 2 degrees centigrade warming threshold. But by making changes to how we grow, produce and consume food, we have a unique opportunity to curb the emissions and secure a livable planet for future generations. So today we have a chance for Fife Council to begin the journey towards joining those other councils I mentioned and perhaps endorsing the Plant-Based Treaty, but more importantly, we start the process of ensuring that we are doing all we can as a local authority to encourage people to embrace the benefits of a more plant-based diet. Research consistently shows that when public organisations lead by example in this way, they inspire positive change in the community. So leadership from Fife Council on this issue will increase choice, improve public health, and encourage individual and collective action on environmental issues. So whatever your view on the Plant-Based Treaty itself, please support this motion today so our officers can report back to us through a report to the Cabinet on what more we can do to support public health, reduce our impact on climate change and improve our environment. So with all that said, Provost, I'm pleased to move motion 3 on our agenda today.
Councillor Patrick, please.
Thank you, Provost. Today we have the opportunity to take a practical, positive and forward-looking step for the people of Fife, one that supports our health, environment and our local economy. We know that the NHS Scotland recommends at least 5 portions of fruit and veg a day to maintain good health. Yet for many families this isn't always easy. Research from the University of Oxford shows that diets rich in whole plant-based foods can not only be healthier, but also more affordable and sustainable. At a time where household budgets are under pressure and when long-term health conditions place increasing strain on individuals and services, this evidence matters. We also cannot ignore the wider context. Both the UK's Climate Change Committee and the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change have been clear. Shifting diets towards more plant-based foods is one of the most effective ways we can reduce emissions and build a more sustainable future. The Scottish Government is also supporting a transition towards lower carbon diets. This motion is not about removing choice, it's about adding to it. It's about ensuring that our schools, leisure centres, events and public buildings, there are appealing, appropriate plant-based options available to everyone. It's about following NHS guidance. By increasing the availability and quality of plant-based meals, enhancing procurement practices and promoting fruit and veg consumption across Fife, we support community well-being and help meet our climate needs. I urge colleagues to support the motion.
We have an amendment from Councillor Al Clark. Councillor Clark, could you read out your amendment, please?
Thank you, Provost. Do you want me just to read out the changes that we're proposing, or do you want me just to read out the entire amendment?
We're quite happy just with the changes. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So just on the motion, point 2 related to research at the University of Oxford. We'd like to remove the 2 words affordable and. So it would read, research from the University of Oxford shows that diets centred around whole plant-based foods are often more environmentally sustainable while reducing the risk of chronic illness. The 3rd bullet point relating to the Scottish Government we'd like to remove. The 5th bullet point, we'd like to remove the last 8 words supporting the general principles of the Plant-Based Treaty. and instead include adopting policies that encourage improved nutrition and environmentally responsible catering. And then under the section council believes, the first bullet point, again, it's fairly similar, it's just removing the plant-based treaty aspect. So it would read, recognise the need for a more sustainable and just food system, and we would include, as long as it does not then affect planning decisions, farm development or land use policy where those issues are subject to existing legislation and policies. And that's it. So I'll go on to move the amendment. So first of all, can I just start by thanking the SNP for this motion. This helps to not only raise the profile of more plant-based options, but also helps to address the climate and nature emergencies within the food system. I also want to thank them for the opportunity to attempt a collaborated motion on this. It is unfortunate it didn't quite work out this time. However, hopefully we will be able to collaborate. So the reason for this amendment really stems from some concerns over the plant-based treaty that were raised by other members, and not necessarily the objective of the overall motion. By removing reference to the organisation, I hope we will have general support for the amendment, as the principles remain the same from that of the motion. Ultimately, this is about encouraging choice through providing more and notably better quality plant-based options. Hopefully, gone are the days when the only vegetarian option on a menu would be mac and cheese, not exactly a well-balanced, healthy option. The amendment retains the local and sustainable aspects from the motion, and it is important to emphasise that whilst the motion is about encouraging plant-based choices, it does not alienate our local farmers or fisheries. If anything, organisations and campaigns such as Meat Free Monday, Friends of the Earth, Compassion in World Farming, the Worldwide Fund for Nature, Sustain, the Alliance for Better Food and Farming, and Eating Better, the Obesity Health Alliance, and Wildlife and Countryside Link all encourage eating less meat but better quality meat from local sustainable sources. This not only helps raise the profile and supports local food, but also demonstrates that plant-based foods have a more critical role to play in our food industry now more than ever. The amendment and motion all encourage more options for people to make their own choice, and I hope that this amendment helps anyone concerned with supporting the plant-based treaty directly to still support the ethos of the motion. I again commend cross-party collaboration for motions, and I hope we can get some consensus across the council, and I hope this amendment will go some way of doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Calder, please.
Thank you, Provost. I hope my voice lasts for this one. Thank you once again to Councillor Clark for the amendment, but also to Councillor Goodall for proposing the motion here. This raises a really important aspect of both health and well-being, but also our environment. And ideally, we can maybe at the end of this look at discussing and seeing if there is something we can do that can get that kind of cross-party support. I think I'm just going to kind of concentrate that. I mean, ultimately, where most of our concerns kind of came around was certain aspects of the plant-based treaty, which I think most of it is very sensible and a good approach. But there's some aspects that we have just a little bit concerns about. And I think endorsing the general principles, you're still generally endorsing these issues. So first of all, looking at Article 10, which is transition to plant-based meal plans in schools, hospitals, nursing homes, etc., etc. I think our concern here is ultimately this feels like it's taking away choice, this what is being suggested here, and there's some potential practical consequences as well. So, in schools, if we're taking away some of the non-plant-based choices, as this would suggest, we might find that more school pupils are tempted to up sticks and go to the local chippy. And in terms of nursing homes or care homes, my concern would be that often it is difficult for many people that are older, if they've got sort of conditions such as dementia. Sometimes there could be challenges eating anyway, so taking away something that they are used to eating throughout their lives, you know, could have some real serious consequences there. So I think we've got a little concern about that. We also have concern about some of the articles about farming and fishing, namely 18, 20, 21, 22, 27 and 30 in the plant-based treaty. And obviously Fife has a thriving farming and fishing industry. And I think what we really should be doing is working in tandem with them. If we are endorsing the principles of the plant-based treaty, there's a risk that we're sort of alienating them. I know that the motion is and the amendment is talking about you know, sustainable locally produced produce, and I think that is absolutely right. But I think we need to be winning hearts and minds on this, and I don't, you know, I'd rather be worked with our agriculture and fishing industries and support those industries as well locally. So, you know, the general principles of the motion I think are fine. I think we just need to kind of iron out, and if we, you know, I'm quite happy to have a little recess if the mover of the motion is happy to do that, just to discuss and see if we can come out with some kind of compromise.
It's been proposed for a reason. Councillor Goodall, are you quite happy?
Yeah, I think there's definitely scope for us to bring something together here. I'm not entirely happy with the amendment as it stands now, so some discussion would be useful, but there's certainly elements of it I think we'd be willing to concede.
The time's at 2:30, 3:30, sorry. I was hopeful there. Yeah. Councillor, thank you very much. Sorry, Councillor Patrick, you're going to read it out? Right. And then we'll ask Councillor Goodall. And Councillor Clark, sorry. Goodall, no. Oh, who's it? Oh, Alan Clark, sorry. Oh, Councillor Patrick, please, sorry.
So it reads, NHS Scotland recommends at least 5 portions of fruit and vegetables a day to support good health. Research from Oxford University, from the University of Oxford 2023 shows that diets centred around whole plant-based foods are often more affordable and environmentally sustainable while reducing the risk of chronic illness. The Scottish Government is tackling climate change by supporting a transition to lower carbon diets, which will include reducing meat and dairy consumption and implementing sustainable farming practices to reduce agricultural emissions. The UK's Climate Change Committee and the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change have both highlighted the environmental benefits of shifting diets toward more plant-based foods. Council across the UK, including City of Edinburgh Council and Lambeth Council in London, have taken steps to promote healthier, more sustainable food in schools and public settings by agreeing to the general principles of the plant-based treaty, encouraging a shift towards more plant-based food options is a positive and inclusive step that can promote community health, support climate goals and reduce long-term food costs. Offering appealing, culturally appropriate plant-based options in public settings like schools and leisure centres provides choice without removing options for others. Supporting increased fruit and vegetable consumption is in line with NHS Scotland guidance. Council therefore agrees to refer this matter to Cabinet Committee to consider a report with recommendations on how Fife Council might recognise the need for a more sustainable and just food system, as long as it does not affect planning decisions, farm development or land use policy where those are subject to existing legislation and policies. Encourage all the council run institutions to increase the availability and quality of affordable plant-based meal options where possible. Explore options to incorporate more local and seasonal and plant-based produce into council catering and procurement policies where feasible and cost-effective. Continue to promote public health campaigns that support increased consumption of fruit and vegetables across the community, including through council communications, encourage food vendors at council-run and council-supported events, including festivals, markets and galas, to offer plant-based food options, ensuring inclusive choices for all the residents. Engage with local food businesses in Fife to promote the addition of more plant-based dishes to their menus where possible. Review the council's current food procurement practices and detailing how plant-based options and sustainability targets can be better supported.
Hey. Thank you very much. Councillor Goodall, please, are you quite happy?
Yes, I think we've managed to come to a bit of a compromise here. If I can maybe just explain some of it. The reason we didn't agree to the initial changes in the council notes area was basically because that was statements of fact that have already happened, and it's not really for us to change history in that way. So we managed to get agreement on that, but we've been happy to compromise on what the report to the Cabinet Committee will actually refer to, and drop the reference to the plant-based treaty there. So hopefully that's a reasonable compromise that still achieves a lot of the aims. Although I would just want to reinforce that it's about increasing choice, not reducing it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Al Clark. Are you quite happy with the proposal?
Very happy to support that. Thank you.
So agreed. Thank you all very much.